welcome. Good morning once again. Turn off your mobile phones or silence mode so that we can start this ceremony. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you. Okay, we're going to start. Distinguished authorities, special guests, esteemed speakers, members of the International Scientific Society on Harmful Algae, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the 21st International Conference on Harmful Algae 2025. The International Conference on Harmful Algae is the most important scientific meeting on harmful algae worldwide. It's organized locally by various national, public, and private institutions led by the Fisheries Development Institute. Harmful algal blooms, commonly known as red tides, are natural events caused by the explosive growth of different species of microalgae that are perceived as harmful by humans. Some of these species can produce toxins or other compounds that contaminate seafood, causing serious food poisoning, and others cause massive mortality on marine organisms, both in farms and in the wild. The severe socio-environmental impacts generated by these types of events, coupled with a growing increase in their occurrence and intensity in recent decades, have led the international scientific community to invest increasing efforts in understanding the factors that trigger these types of blooms and developing mitigation strategies in the affected regions. Harmful algal blooms are a global problem, becoming increasingly frequent, widespread, and intense in their impacts. Consequently, there are various groups of scientists distributed throughout the planet focused on achieving a better understanding of these blooms and their effects. In turn, each country or region has developed capabilities and has the means to monitor and manage the effects of these blooms. The International Conference on Harmful Algae brings together every 2 years researchers from around the world focused on showcasing the latest advances in the study of harmful algal blooms. The local organizing committee of the International Conference on Harmful Algae, with the support of international referees and members of the International Advisory Board, have accepted 176 oral talks, 45 Ignite talks, and 177 posters, which will expose in 14 thematic areas. To continue, due to circumstances beyond our control, our governor, Mr. Jorge Flies, the governor of the Magallanes and Chilean Antarctic region, has been unable to attend this welcome ceremony, so we feel sorry about it. Okay. Formal remarks by our mayor of Punta Arenas, Mr. Claudio Radonich Jimenez, is going to give a welcome to you.
Hello, welcome to Antarctica. Welcome to Punta Arenas. My English is so bad, so I prefer to stay with you with translator.
He's very happy to be with you in this ceremony, and he says that he welcomed you to this event.
Están en un lugar estratégico hoy para la ciencia mundial.
This is a strategic place for the worldwide science.
Estamos a unas semanas de la COP30 en Brasil, esta COP latinoamericana, que nos enfoca desde el sur, donde tenemos muchos problemas, pero también una esperanza.
We are at the top 30 in the world. What else?
Y una esperanza. Tenemos problemas, muchos problemas y también esperanza.
But we are the, how can I say, We are in the top 30, but we are also with the hope that we can do something to solve problems in relation to science.
Charles Darwin estuvo aquí hace algunos años. Charles Darwin estuvo aquí hace algunos años.
Do you know that Charles Darwin was here various years ago, lots of years ago?
Y muchos científicos antárticos
And lots of Antarctic scientists have been here too.
ocupan nuestra ciudad como base para ir a la Antártica y realizar sus investigaciones.
Scientists come here to make their investigations in the Antarctic.
Claramente, en las últimas décadas, el cambio de clima ha sido el punto fundamental de sus investigaciones.
Climate change has been the most important point or area to investigate for all scientists here.
Y dentro de los temas como las mareas rojas que ustedes están
Red
investigando,
tides. Red tides is an important area to investigate and search.
claramente que el cambio de clima tiene una consecuencia compleja en una enfermedad que no solamente afecta a los humanos, sino también a las especies marinas.
Climate change may produce or provoke problems, not only in humans.
Es por eso que para nuestra ciudad es un honor que tan distinguidos científicos como ustedes estén en esta ciudad estudiando y viendo in situ nuestra atmósfera, nuestro medio ambiente, pero sobre todo buscando respuestas a los problemas que tenemos hoy y los que vendrán en el futuro.
It's an honor to have you here, all of you in your capacity of being investigators and scientists to study all what is happening here in relation to climate change and red tides and so far and so forth. So thank you for being here. It's a honor.
Disfruten nuestra ciudad, una ciudad con historia, una ciudad de ciencia y la principal puerta de entrada a la Antártica.
Enjoy our city. It's the door to the Antarctic. It's a treasure. Thank you.
And clap for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Welcoming remarks by the Chair of the Directors Board of the Fisheries Development Institute, Mr. Claudio Maggi Campos. Come on stage, please.
Good morning. Wow, what a big attendance. Señor alcalde, estimado alcalde de la ciudad de Punta Arenas, señor rector de la Universidad de Magallanes, Mr. President, International Conference, International Committee of International ISSHA Conference, host chair of the conference, Dr. Leonardo Guzmán, autoridades regionales, Seremi de Ciencia, directora regional de Cernapesca y otras autoridades presentes, ladies and gentlemen, scientific community. On behalf of the whole community of the Chilean Institute for Fisheries Development, IFOP, welcome everyone to Punta Arenas, the capital city of this wonderful and unique Magallanes and Chilean Antarctic region. We are honored to host this biennial international conference, ICHA, considered the most important scientific meeting worldwide about harmful algae topics. In the current context of the global climate crisis, as the Mayor has said, and the growing relevance of fisheries and aquaculture as sustainable sources of food security, it becomes more important than ever to be able to go deeper on a better understanding on HABs and their effects in order to improve the capacity to prevent, mitigate, and respond to them. HAB means harmful algae blooming. Well, given the significant and sensitive socioeconomic impact of harmful algae on fishing, farming, and collecting hydric resources in our country, in Chile in particular, IFOP holds a long tradition on both basic and applied research regarding to HABs. According to this focus, since the beginning of the 90s, IFOP has promoted several monitoring and research permanent programs like Fiordos and Pacifico, covering together more than 300 sampling sites along fjords and the Pacific coast. More recently, IFOP has created CREAN, a specialized research and analysis center on this topic. Furthermore, the Institute has hosted several international meetings in Chile, such as FANSA, the regional group dependent of IP Hub in 2000 and 2008, GeoHub meeting in 2004, and most recently an international scientific colloquium in 2019. I would like to highlight especially the outstanding role of the National Organizing Committee, made up of more than 60 participating scientists invited from various partner research institutions associated with the hub, distributed among different working groups. Their commitment and hard work have been crucial to the successful organization of this conference. To finish, last but not least, let me thank Dr. Leonardo Guzman, all IFOP teams supporting your work, and also Dr. Gaston Vidal for their valuable contributions to make possible being today in Punta Arenas opening this ISSHA 2025 conference. We hope that these days will be rich by exchanging, learning, and exploring new collaborative R&D initiatives on harmful algae phenomena. Have a wonderful and fruitful conference. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you, Mr. Maggi. Now we have welcoming remarks by the rector of the Universidad de Magallanes, Mr. José Maripani Maripani. Come on stage, please.
I refrain from repeating the vocatives. Greetings all. Distinguished members of the international scientific community, dear colleagues and friends, good morning. Let me begin with a question. What drives so many of you to come to the very edge of the world in the name of science? Perhaps the answer lies in the very nature of research itself, in that tireless pursuit of unknown, in the desire to view the planet from new perspectives, and in the will to listen to the voices that emerge from the edge of the map. Today, in Punta Arenas, at the far south of the south, we are united by a shared purpose: to push the boundaries of knowledge and to embrace our collective responsibility to protect the oceans that sustain life. The 21st International Conference of Harmful Algae, ISSHA 2025, is, in this sense, much more than a scientific meeting. It stands as a symbol of international cooperation, a commitment to marine sustainability, and a recognition of a territory that has embraced its role as a leading hub for Antarctic and subantarctic research. The Magallanes and Chilean Antarctic region is truly a unique place on Earth. Here, the waters of the Pacific and Atlantic converge. Cold currents and southern winds meet, and nature reveals itself in its purest and most challenging form. That is why we proudly say that Magallanes is a natural laboratory of planetary scale, a place where we study the effects of climate change, the dynamics of marine ecosystems, and the transformation that will define the future of our oceans. In this southern land, science is not observed from afar. It is lived, felt, and shared. Every channel and fjord, carved by the retreat of ancient glaciers, and every species inhabiting these waters teach us about the interdependence of life and the urgency of action in the face of the change we are already witnessing. The University of Magallanes is an active part of this process. As a public and regional university, we have the responsibility to generate relevant knowledge, to educate committed professionals, and to connect research with the needs of our territory. Here we work alongside institutions as IFOP, which leads this conference with excellence, and the International Society for Study of Harmful Algae, ISSHA, which has placed its trust in Chile and in our region to host this global gathering. During its history, the University of Magallanes, UMAG, we say, has fulfilled an essential role as a state and public university, becoming the southernmost university on the planet, with its subantarctic campus located in Puerto Williams, commune of Cape Horn, on the shores of the Beagle Channel. This role carries deep geopolitical and geostrategic significance. As a university, we are one of the small yet vital gears contributing to the broader regional goal of strengthening Chile's southernmost territory. When we speak of an extreme zone, we must also think in geopolitical terms, in the balance between sovereignty, territory, and human settlement. We believe the university has much to contribute to what we might call scientific sovereignty, the capacity to organize and understand our subantarctic and Antarctic territories, to support a region that, while the largest in Chile, at over 132,000 square kilometers, is also the second less populated, with less than 1% of the country's inhabitants, and to ensure that those who live here enjoy a better quality of life. Now, within this great natural laboratory that our territory offers, we also observe harmful algal blooms, HABs, the very phenomenon that bring us together today. They are a clear expression of the global challenge of our time. They are increasing frequency, linked to climatic, oceanographic, and human factors, calls for collaboration, continuous observation, and interdisciplinary dialogue. This meeting at the southern end of the world invite us precisely to that, to view the ocean from a new latitude, to share knowledge and experience, and to design strategies that integrate science, management, and community. Because Magallanes offers not only an awe-inspiring landscape, it also provides unique scientific conditions, direct access to southern ecosystems, and a network of institutions devoted to understanding and preserving this fragile yet powerful environment. It is here that the planet shows its earliest sign of change. It is here that scientists can observe processes that will later manifest across the hemisphere. And it is here, too, that collaboration takes on its truest meaning, acknowledged as collective act, as a service, and a source of hope. I want to express my deepest appreciation to the National Organizing Committee of ISSHA 2025, composed of more than 60 researchers from various Chilean institutions, and TWIFOP, whose dedication and excellence embody the very spirit of public service. Ladies and gentlemen, from this corner of the world, I invite you to look a planet with new eyes. May southern wind to the sea that surround us and the vastness of this landscape remind us that science knows no borders, and that every discovery carries within in the possibility of caring for our shared home. Welcome to Magallanes, the planet's natural laboratory, the gateway to Antarctica, and a territory where knowledge expands toward the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Maripani. Now we have introductory remarks for International Conference on Harmful Algae 2025 by the Chair of the International Scientific Society on Harmful Algae, Mr. Detman van der Waal. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. And the slide is on. So, welcome to ISSHA on behalf of the International Society for the Study of Harmful Algae. As said, my name is Detman van der Waal. I'm a president of ISSHA. I had the honor to be that for the last 2 years. And it's so nice to see so many familiar faces here and so many faces from different places in the world, different career stages, and that's really where these meetings are about. And even only since the last ISSHA meeting, things have changed quite a bit in the world, I feel. Many countries have pulled up borders more than before, it seems. And we know that environmental challenges like harmful algae do not know and obey these borders, right? And that's why it's so important to meet and have these networks, because then we can break through these borders and share the science. And that's what we do at these meetings. I think that's very nice, and really nice to see so many of you coming here, take the effort to come to this place. It also is that harmful algal blooms are not one topic, right? Even though we present it like that. It consists of about a lot of subdisciplines. We have taxonomy, we have toxicology, molecular biologies, we have ecology and social sciences, etc., etc. And that's all here, and we try to understand each other's languages, and that's important to tackle this challenge of harmful algal blooms. And I see that also in the program, which covers all these different bases. And for that, I really want to congratulate and thank the local organizing committee. Just see if this works. Of course it doesn't. Big thanks to Leonardo and the local organizing committee. I needed to have a drum roll in there. But yeah, so really thanks Leonardo and all local organizers. It's not trivial to organize these meetings. It's a lot of work, and to really get you all here, there has been done a lot, and it's still being done at this very moment. So it's really great that you took this effort and made a great program, workshops. It's a very diverse program, and really grateful for that. So I have a few notes from ISSHA that I want to highlight for this week. So first about what is ISSHA. So what we do. So this is the ISSHA Council. So we consist of quite a few members. We have an executive council, we have members, and we are voted, so there's voting is still going on. So today membership can still vote till 12 o'clock. I will tell a bit more about that later. So you see, we really cover a lot of places in the world. Then, what ISSHA does is different aspects. So we organize travel support, as some of you may have seen. So for students, we have also some new awards, so including travel support for retired scientists and for scientists from underrepresented countries. Then we have achievement awards and student presentation awards. Young Investigator Network session was yesterday and was great success. More than 50 young investigators joined. We have an auction, so this coming Thursday, very important. We have special issues this time, so it's the first time we move from proceedings to special issues that we coordinated. And then there's a reduced fee for ISSHA conferences, which may also not be unimportant for some people, of course. So, and I just have to say this, it's not on me, it's for the society, right? So if you want to support this work that we do, please become a member, because we really rely on membership for doing all this. I had to say that. Okay, so for this week, what do we do more? So we have the General Assembly tonight. So for membership, please join. We have some activities. So we will announce the winners of the Yashimoto and Patrick Chinten Achievement Awards. We will have a showcase of the different ISSHA council activities that we've done, and some bylaw changes, very minor. Then we have the election outcome for the new council. As said, voting is still possible till 12. And we have the winning bid for the ISSHA 2029, so that's kind of exciting, of course. Then this Thursday there's the auction. So it was already in the notes, so historically a highlight of the meeting, so I hope we can keep it like that. All proceeds go to support of student travel, so yeah, I will be very shamefully trying to get a lot of money from all of you for that, of course. So then we have the closing ceremony on Friday. Please attend. So there we have some conference highlights, a presentation on that. We have the formal delivery of the Yashimoto and Patrick Chinten Achievement Awards. And then, of course, the Maureen Keller Student Presentations Awards. So we have 3 poster awards and 3 oral presentation awards. And then presentation of the next ISSHA 2027, which will be held in Aberdeen, Scotland. And then we have 3 special issues. More information on that you can find on the ISSHA website. Or you can also, and that's what we have this year again, we have a stand. So please, if you have questions or suggestions to ISSHA, please visit us at our stand. And to also get you even more there, maybe a better chance to get you there is we have stickers. So they may help. They're beautiful, like the one Elsie said, I'm just beautiful. I think that's a very nice one. Anyway, so we have stickers and you can collect that. And of course, if you're not a member yet, well, just become a member. And with that, I really want to wish you a very nice meeting. Enjoy, make friends, and hope to talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. van der Waal. Welcoming remarks by the Chair of the Local Organizing Committee of ICHA 2025, Mr. Leonardo Guzmán Méndez.
Good morning. Mr. Mayor of the city, distinguished authorities, colleagues, guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a tremendous honor to extend a warm welcome to the 21st International Conference on Harmful Algae, which is being held here at the southernmost tip of the American continent, in the beautiful city of Punta Arenas, Chile. On behalf of the local organizing committee, I want to express our deepest gratitude to the international scientific community for entrusting us with the organization of this prestigious event. We are very proud to host you in the Magallanes and Chilean Antarctic region, a territory of great historical, cultural, and of course scientific significance. For the duration of this week, Punta Arenas will become a beacon on scientific exchange and collaboration, where we will address the challenges and opportunities related to the study of harmful algal blooms. It is our goal that this Congress will be a space for sharing knowledge, forging new collaborations, and strengthening the scientific foundation that allows us to confront the threats that HABs pose to marine ecosystem and human health. The lighthouse that orients our sailing today, from hub science to environmental resilience, perfectly summarizes our purpose: to use knowledge to build a stronger, more resilient world in the face of future challenges. Through this process, we strengthen our capacity for adaptation and recovery. We are certain that ISSHA 2025 will offer a unique experience for all participants. Beyond the presentation and workshops, this conference is an opportunity for scientists from around the world to interact, exchange ideas, and explore the stunning landscape of Chilean Patagonia. We hope you find the program enriching and stimulating, and that you make the most of these sessions, workshops, and networking opportunities. Before finishing my words, I want to express our immense gratitude to the organizations and individuals who have made this conference possible. It is through the generous and unwavering support of our sponsors and supporters so that we can bring together such a distinguished group of experts around the globe. Special commitment, special recognition to our sponsors and our supporting organizations. Your commitment to advancing the science of harmful algal blooms is deeply appreciated. We could not have created this rich and stimulating experience without you. Special public recognition to Maximo, Pamela, Katarina, and who have dedicated enthusiasm, energy, and good intentions to this ISSHA version. Without further ado, and with greater enthusiasm, I officially declare ISSHA 25 open. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Leonardo Guzmán. We thank you for your participation in this event and invite you to actively participate in the rest of the conference. We remind you that as soon as this official opening concludes, the first keynote address will begin, followed by a coffee break, and then the sessions will begin as indicated in the program. Before the chairs of the first keynote address take their seats, we will take a short break to allow those with other commitments the opportunity to leave. Do not forget that the conference mobile app is available, ISSHA 2025, Android and iPhone. The first keynote address will be given by Dr. Mireille Tinen from French Polynesia, managing seawater poisoning risk in light of contributions from Western science and traditional knowledge.
Buenos días. Hello. I'm Jorge Diogen from IRTA, and I'm glad to chair this session. So most of us have conducted a long physical trip to come to excellent Punta Arenas, and now we're starting a virtual scientific trip during 5 days to different oceans, seas, rivers, lakes, laboratories, and the mind and knowledge of a lot of scientists. Hello. So let's start going to Tahiti with Mireille China at ILM. So I let the other chair to introduce Mireille.
Our speaker this morning is Mireille China, a remarkable career and a leading light in particularly Pacific ciguatera research in Gambardiscus. I've admired her work since I began my career.
So Dr. Chinen serves as co-leader of the Intergovernmental Panel on Harmful Algal Blooms, International Strategy Plan for Ciguatera. She specialized in the study of ciguatera, a foodborne disease caused by consuming fish contaminated with this type of marine biotoxin. Dr. China has conducted research into the ecology, biodiversity, and taxonomy of the dinoflagellates Gambardiscus, which causes ciguatera, and has developed methods for toxin detection. She was the first recipient of the Yasumoto Lifetime Achievement Award in the Pacific region. So, welcome, Mireille.
This one is forward.
Yeah.
Okay, good morning, everyone. And first, I would like to thank Dr. Leonardo Guzman and also the local organizing committee for their invitation to give this plenary talk. It's really a great honor. Thank you. Thank you. So those of you who have traveled across the Pacific Islands are well aware that in these small communities, the concept of culture is present everywhere, as reflected in this rich blend of traditions, dances, and craft that are transmitted through generations. So it's not surprising if this strong cultural imprint also influences the perception and the management of seafood poisoning, which is highly prevalent in these countries. And it's known as ciguatera fish poisoning, and this will be the topic of my talk this morning. So first, I will briefly present what is ciguatera poisoning and also the current challenges and knowledge gaps towards an effective management of ciguatera risk. Then we'll examine the traditional knowledge related to ciguatera and how it translates into local management practices among these island communities. And finally, we'll discuss the importance of bridging Western science and traditional knowledge based on practical examples. So ciguatera poisoning is caused by the consumption of coral reef fish which are contaminated by toxins known as ciguatoxins, which are produced by benthic dinoflagellates in the genera Gambardiscus and Fukuyoa. And these organisms grow preferentially on macroalgae in degraded coral habitats. So the natural disturbances as well as the human activities which disrupt the coral reef ecosystems will likely enhance the risk of ciguatera outbreaks. So these toxins, the ciguatoxins, enter the marine food webs mainly through the grazing activity of herbivores and detritivores. Then they subsequently bioaccumulate in carnivores to finally reach human populations, causing important health and socioeconomic impacts. In Pacific Island countries and territory, or PICTs, fish contribute substantially to the livelihoods and household incomes of these local populations. And in these communities, there is a strong tradition of eating fresh fish, which represent the main, if not only, source of animal protein. And this is why in these regions, the annual fish consumption rates are among the highest in the world, even reaching 165 kilos per capita in some French Polynesian islands, as compared to a global rate of 20 kilos or 7 kilos in the US. Also, in these regions, there are some specific challenges that need to be kept in mind while designing mitigation programs, such as the existence of multiple supply channels, including public markets, supermarkets, restaurants, family gifts, and even roadside. The notorious lack of traceability of fish products from their harvest areas to retail outlets is also a major problem, especially in nations comprising multiple or hundreds of islands. There is also a clear lack of regulatory text for the official control of ciguatera, and when these texts exist, most of them need to be updated. Therefore, ciguatera has strong socio-economic impacts on these island communities, and at least 5 types of costs have been identified. Health costs, which include hospitalization, treatment fees, and the loss of income due to sick days. And they were estimated to amount to €1 million a year, based on studies in the Cook Islands and French Polynesia. Ciguatera is also responsible for the slowdown or closure of coral reef fish market, and in hotspots, ciguatera hotspots, it can also discourage the development of commercial lagoon fisheries. And of course, one of the major impact of ciguatera is the loss of a food source, because these communities rely so heavily on marine products for their subsistence. And following a major ciguatera outbreak, individuals or entire populations tend to reduce their fish consumption for fear of ciguatera recurrence. And this can lead to a gradual dietary shift towards canned foods, and eventually to an increase in the non-communicable disease prevalence. And in some countries, like the Cook Island, it can even result in disruption in the transmission of traditional subsistence fishing knowledge between generations. The impact of ciguatera on tourism activity should not be overlooked. In 2020, 55 countries were officially identified as ciguatera at-risk destinations by the International Association for Medical Assistance to Travelers, and this bad publicity can discourage local fish consumption among tourists, and also cause a slowdown in recreational fishing activities. And finally, implementing ciguatera risk monitoring and management programs in a country has a cost. And it involves mainly the cost derived from staff time, field samplings, toxic surveys, epidemiological surveillance, research programs, and so on. Despite the research advances achieved over the past decades, several challenges and knowledge gaps persist that significantly hamper the implementation of effective ciguatera control programs. I think the first major challenge is that this disease remains largely understudied and underreported. Ciguatera comprise over 175 distinct symptoms, which is responsible for its frequent misdiagnosis and misclassification, especially in non-endemic regions. Also, the ciguatera incidence rates are largely underestimated at a global level. Actually, it is estimated that the current statistic may represent only 0.1 to 20% of actual cases in the Caribbean and the Pacific, respectively. Because the surveillance program exists only in a limited number of regions, ciguatera is not a reportable disease in many countries, and also there is a general reticence among ciguatera patients to consult, seek treatment, and of course report their poisoning. There is no known effective treatment, no diagnosis tools. Ciguatera does not confer any immunity in its victim, and to the contrary, often result in increased sensitivity to food products. And on top of that, you also have chronic forms of ciguatera that may last months, 2 years, that has been reported in at least 20% of patients. So based on this picture, considering ciguatera as a neglected disease in hyperendemic regions is certainly not an overstatement. Among the current challenge and knowledge gap that need to also be highlighted is the fact that we still lack reliable predictive models of Gambia discus and Fukuyua abundance and toxicity. Up to 20 different distinct Gambia discus species and 4 Fukuyua species are currently recognized globally, and they also have a very wide geographic distribution as shown on this map. Since many regions remain largely unexplored, it means that in the coming years, additional species will probably be proposed. And Gambia discus and Fukuyua were originally viewed as pantropical organisms, but observation highlight their recent expansion to temperate-like regions. And it is suggested that this expansion is due in part to the effects of climate change. Not all Gambia discus species are ciguatoxin producers, and in fact, in a majority of species, the toxin levels are very low, of the order of femtogram per cell, but there are definitely a few superbug species, such as Gambia discus polynesiensis, Gambia discus sylvae, in which toxin production can reach several picograms of toxins per cell. And also, significant variations in the ciguatoxin production have been reported, not only across species, but also between strains from different geographic origins. And also, the third challenge is that detecting ciguatoxins in fish tissue is not a simple task due to the presence of multiple ciguatoxin congeners, plus several additional toxic compounds that are listed, that are shown on this slide, whose actual contribution to the ciguatera syndrome is still poorly documented, except for ciguatoxins and mycotoxins. And ciguatoxins are generally present in trace amount in complex matrices, which means that for their detection, we need very sensitive and very specific methodologies. The co-occurrence of interfering molecules in fish tissues is also responsible for false positive, false negatives, which are detrimental to the fishers and the consumers, respectively. The current lack of ciguatoxin standards, or the limited amount of these standards and reference biological material, greatly limit the intra-laboratory standardization and validation efforts. So we we still lack a consensus reference method and regulatory safety limits, and for the moment, only the US FDA guidance level prevail. And finally, the toxin profiles in fish are species-specific, region-specific, as they are likely shaped by the genetic composition of nearby Gambia discus communities. So all these limitations constitute a serious hindrance to effective ciguatera control programs. While the first scientific studies on ciguatera actually began around the 1960s, due to the joint efforts of US, Japanese, and French Polynesian teams. In the meantime, native population have been confronted to this enigmatic disease for ages. And this is attested by the numerous accounts of ciguatera outbreaks found in logbook transcriptions of famous explorers traveling in the Pacific and the Caribbean. And historically, the first written account of a ciguatera outbreak was provided by Pedro Fernandez de Queiroz in the Pacific, following the consumption of a snapper in Vanuatu, and all his crew members were actually hit by a ciguatera outbreak. And even back then, the victims suspected their illness was due to the consumption of fish that were contaminated with what they call a venomous herb or fruit. And later, you have John Locke, who was the first to provide a very detailed description of some of the features specific to the ciguatera, especially the itching problem, and the fact that in a catch, only certain fish would be affected by the poison, and also the possible recurrence of ciguatera symptoms following a first poisoning. You also have this very famous account of a ciguatera incident caused by the consumption of a moray eel on board the famous ship, the Bounty, while mooring in the Society Islands in French Polynesia, and it was provided by James Morrison. And Morrison reported the following. He said that as natives were unable to tell the good fish from the bad, they hesitate to throw them away and risk eating them, which suggests that oral histories of ciguatera may have circulated among these native communities long before these first written accounts. And later, during the 19th century, there are many writings which indicate that all the populations living in the different group islands of French Polynesia, the Tuamotu Islands, the Gambia Islands, the Marquesas Islands, they were all aware of this disease called ciguatera. And finally, during the 20th century, many Pacific communities continue to be confronted to the ciguatera problem, this time because of military activities during and following World War II, especially war material dumping and also nuclear tests. And what I wanted to illustrate is that this secular cohabitation of native populations with the ciguatera problem probably explain the high risk-taking behavior commonly observed among these communities, which often stun many non-native people and especially the scientists. A countrywide epidemiological survey of ciguatera in French Polynesia revealed that a significant part of ciguatera victims has experienced ciguatera at least once in their lifetime, and for some of these patients, even up to 10 or 25 times. Also in the Pacific, consuming some high-risk species such as moray eels and also fish parts that are known to harbor very high concentration of ciguatoxins, such as the liver, the head, the eyes of the fish, are in fact regarded as a delicacy by local populations. Among the reasons given by the locals for this high risk-taking behavior was the fact that to them, the pleasure of eating the fish, even if suspected toxic, was more compelling than the potential discomfort associated with the disease. Some people will deliberately consume the suspect fish to prevent other family members from poisoning themselves. And also because they know that in a catch, only certain fish are actually toxic, they were willing to take the risk. Another possible explanation for this high risk-taking behavior is the high confidence these local populations have in their traditional knowledge about Ciguatera, and also confidence in the efficacy of some folk tests they use and traditional remedies to manage these poisoning problems. Speaking about traditional knowledge, it can be defined as a cumulative body of knowledge, beliefs, practices, evolving through adaptive processes and handed down through generations by cultural transmission. And TK is usually based on personal cultural experience, but also on personal observations, most notably observations of the natural environment. Even though many of these observations are not necessarily rigorous scientific observations. A big part of this traditional knowledge in Pacific Islands is dedicated to the management and treatment of Ciguatera poisoning. And in fact, in many of these communities, they have specific vernacular names to designate ciguatoxic fish. In Fiji, it is referred to as Ika gaga, in Wallis and Futuna, Konahia ite Ika, and in French Polynesia, Ta'ero ia. And also in the Pacific, many popular beliefs, popular knowledge related to Ciguatera link the etiology of Ciguatera to natural phenomenon such as seasonal cycles or to occasional disruptions in the marine environment, such as a ship going on the reef or hurricanes. But what is interesting to note is that some of these popular beliefs foreshadow Western scientific explanations. For instance, in Vanuatu, heavy rainfalls or warmer temperatures or the fruiting and flowering of specific plants are local alerts of imminent Ciguatera outbreaks. In the Dominican Republic or Vanuatu, dense aggregations of jellyfish and the balolo spawning season in Fiji are believed to coincide with Ciguatera seasons and warn people to stop consuming known potentially toxic species and also refrain from fishing in known Ciguatera hotspots. In Samoa, fish feeding on a particular species of red macroalgae are also deemed toxic. So this rich traditional knowledge about Ciguatera has translated into a variety of local practices that local people are very fond of because they are easy and quick to perform on their daily catches. For instance, they have developed some folk tests that are specifically used to detect toxic fish, such as feeding a piece of fish to a dog or a cat. And in French Polynesia, this technique is so popular that in some islands, there is virtually no more cats or dogs seen in the islands. Feeding ants or flies with a small portion of liver tissue can also be used, but the local people readily admit that ants and flies can sometimes make mistakes. Rubbing the fish liver on your gums or lips and watching if it causes a tingling of the mouth also seems to work. But I think the most widely used techniques is watching for physical characteristic of fish, such as looking for a fish with easily detachable scales or a sluggish fish or a fish with rigor mortis or hemorrhagic signs. But whether these folk tests are effective or not, many studies, scientific studies, agree that the fishing communities living in ciguatera endemic areas have indeed developed a remarkable local ecological knowledge of the CP-prone fish species and also the toxic fishing grounds. In addition to these folk tests, adaptive fish consumption habits are also empirically applied to limit exposure to ciguatoxins, such as rejecting suspect fish, avoiding consuming fish liver and head, or space out fish meals. But we have just seen that local people love to take risk when it comes to fish consumption. In some households, the father or the older family member would decide to test a suspect fish first, freeze the rest, and wait a few days before deciding if it's safe to share it with the rest of the family to prevent young children and pregnant mothers from poisoning themselves. There is also this technique which consists in limiting your consumption to fish specimens of smaller size or low trophic levels, but we will rediscuss the relevance of this strategy in a few minutes. Also, meal preparation techniques believed to detoxify fish have been reported. For instance, in some islands, fish are kept in enclosed ponds for varying periods of time, but we know that this technique may not be 100% efficient because some carnivorous fish, like the red snapper, have a ciguatoxin half-life that can exceed 2.5 years. Some fish can be cooked with various herbs believed to be able to detoxify the fish tissues. And in the Dominican Republic, stew fish or fish soup are believed to be more toxic than fried fish. In Fiji, but also in many islands, high-risk species like moray eels are systematically gutted and thoroughly washed in hot water before meal preparation. And I'd like to share with you this technique that is used only in French Polynesia and concern the meal preparation of a well-known CP-prone fish called Cenocatus striatus. It's a surgeon fish. It's also called maito by the locals. And this fish is soaked in water prior to cooking. And this is an interesting technique because this process may actually make this fish safer to eat because we know that mycotoxins are often found in great quantities in this fish, along with the ciguatoxins, and we know that mycotoxins is actually a water-soluble toxins. The use of traditional remedies to treat ciguatera is also deeply rooted in a lifestyle of island populations. And in fact, a survey conducted in French Polynesia concluded that half of the public health professionals were keen to recommend the use of these traditional remedies to their patients. And in PICTs, nearly 100 plants are used to treat ciguatera, either as curative or preventive remedies, but there are poor information on the dosage and the duration of the treatment, which significantly vary across traditional healers. And like Western medicine, these remedies provide symptomatic treatment only, and it's based for the most part on the purgative effects. But very few of these recipes have received scientific attention, so their true efficacy has not been scientifically evaluated. And among this vast list of remedies or recipes, one will inevitably find a number of odd remedies or even dangerous ones, such as drinking a mixture of urine and ash to provoke vomiting, or drinking cooking oil to prevent ciguatoxins from entering the bloodstream. And some people will use remedies containing huge amounts of sugar, because the population believes that ciguatera never affects diabetic people. And so the existence of these unconventional and even dangerous remedies or practices are part of the reason why I think trying to bridge Western science and traditional knowledge is important, because both knowledges can be mutually beneficial. And I would try to illustrate my point by several examples where the scientific findings have actually led to reconsider some of the early paradigms in ciguatera, many of which have actually inspired local practices we have just reviewed. And conversely, I will also give some examples where science contribution has helped confirm the efficacy of some of these local practices. So historically, ciguatera was thought of as a carnivore problem, and it's true that in Caribbean, Japan, Asia, Canary Island, Australia, the ciguatera outbreaks mainly involve carnivores, but in the South Pacific, herbivores such as the parrotfish and surgeonfish are also major contributors to ciguatera incidents. In this figure, we have shown the CTX levels found in 13 species of herbivores, omnivores, and carnivores that were tested by CBA N2A as part of random toxic surveys conducted in French Polynesia. And we found that in most of the herbivores and omnivores tested, for instance, the unicorn fish, the parrotfish, the surgeonfish, and the mullet, the ciguatoxin levels were found to exceed 10 nanograms of ciguatoxin 3C equivalent per gram of flesh, while the maximum ciguatoxin levels measured in carnivores were generally lower. And surprisingly, for two of these carnivores, the camouflage grouper and the blue-spotted grouper, 80% and 54% of these fish, respectively, were actually found negative to ciguatoxin. So this means that, at least in French Polynesia, herbivores can be as toxic and sometimes even more toxic than carnivores. Another common practice in Pacific Islands is to restrict your fish consumption to small individuals, and this avoidance strategy is based on the popular belief that a small fish is safer to eat. And actually, there are several countries who have issued fish bans based solely on fish size, fish weight thresholds for the official control of ciguatera. But many studies who have addressed this issue, meaning is size or weight a good predictor of fish toxicity, many of these studies have resulted in contradictory conclusions. So in French Polynesia, we choose to analyze 700 fish, and we found no clear correlation between the ciguatoxin levels and fish size or fish body weight. And actually, if you look at this picture, for some herbivores like the unicorn fish and parrotfish, a negative correlation between the size and the ciguatoxin levels were found. And similarly, we have also examined the age relationship to ciguatoxicity in 200 coral reef fish based on otolith analysis. And again, the results show that age is not a reliable determinant of fish ciguatoxicity. And actually, our results show that the ciguatoxicity in fish is rather species-specific and also site-specific, which show that maybe providing a tailored risk map to the local population could be a much better approach to try to reduce ciguatera cases. Other paradigms should also be revised. For instance, ciguatera is not limited to the consumption of coral reef fish, because many reports of sometimes very severe poisoning involving these marine invertebrates exist in the South Pacific and the West Indies. And also, the common assumption that deep sea fish can never be ciguatoxic should also be revised, as demonstrated by this study conducted in the Gambia Island, a very well-known historical hotspot for ciguatera. These two studies enable to confirm that some of these marine invertebrates can bioaccumulate ciguatoxins. In the first study, giant clams were experimentally exposed to highly toxic cells of Gambia discus polynesiensis, and we measured the ciguatoxin levels in different tissue of this animal, and we found that the ciguatoxin levels were preferentially bioaccumulated in the viscera, but they were also found in the flesh and the mantle at levels that exceed the safety limit for human consumption. And this is a very important finding because we have to warn local population that evisceration, I mean removing the hepatopancreas of these giant clams, which is a practice that is widely used in island communities, is not sufficient to ensure the safe consumption of potentially toxic giant clams. The second study is a field survey in Nukuhiva Island in the Marquesas, and following a mass outbreak which involved this gastropod, also known trochus, and we monitored the ciguatoxin levels in wide specimen of this gastropod 1 month, 6 months, and 28 months post-toxic event. And our data, CBA and 2A data and LCMS-MS data, show that despite a 25-fold decrease of the ciguatoxin levels in this gastropod, the toxin levels were still very high and way above the US FDA guidance level, suggesting that a very slow depuration rate for ciguatoxins in the gastropod. The next two slides illustrate how scientific contribution help confirm the effectiveness of some of these local practices. And this study here was conducted in Raivave Island and aimed to evaluate the performance of two folk tests used to detect toxic fish, namely the rigor mortis test and the hemorrhagic test. According to this test, a flabby fish and the presence of hemorrhagic signs at the tail of the fish are the signs that the fish is toxic. So we captured 107 fish around the island, and they were subjected to the diagnosis of 5 local testers, and their results were further compared to laboratory toxicity data. And we found that the performance of this test varied across testers, depending on their skills and on whether they had a long practice of the test. But hemorrhagic test provided more reliable results than the rigor mortis test, with 70% of good results. And this can be explained by the hemolytic activity, ciguatoxin 1, demonstrate on human red blood cells. So overall, this study concluded that in hyperendemic areas for ciguatera, the use of these two tests, combined with the very good knowledge the local people have of the hotspots and also the hot species, can actually help reduce the number of ciguatera cases in a significant way. We also evaluated the efficacy of a remedy that is widely used throughout the Pacific, and the plant used by local communities is called Heliotropon forcerianum, also known as octopus bush or tahinu for the locals. And a ethnobotanical survey showed that decoction prepared from the leaves of this plant is by far the most popular remedy used to treat ciguatera throughout the Pacific. So we conducted a number of laboratory studies on this remedy, and we found that the main active compound in this preparation is rosmarinic acid. It's a phenolic compound which also has additional beneficial properties, including antiviral, antibacterial, antioxidant, and anti-inflammatory properties. Another study also showed that aqueous extract of this preparation and rosmarinic acid can actually inhibit the binding of tritiated brevetoxin on rat synaptosomes in receptor binding assays, suggesting that this preparation have detoxifying properties against ciguatoxins. And finally, this study here measured the effect of rosmarinic acid treatment on the ciguatoxin-induced lactate dehydrogenase activity in primary human neurons. And here the LDH activity is used as a proxy of the cellular toxicity. And our results show that pre-treatment with rosmarinic acid can actually significantly reduce the cellular toxicity in these human neurons. And finally, I'd like to point out to the importance of conducting outreach and communication activities in the field among communities that are highly exposed to ciguatera risk. Because they are critically important in the management of ciguatera, as exemplified in some reports taken from the Caribbean and the Pacific. For instance, in Cuba, a significant decrease in ciguatera outbreaks have been observed following community educational intervention, combined with the display of awareness materials in clinics, waiting room, and local schools. In the Dominican Republic, ciguatera was initially ascribed to copper from sunken boat, but after outreach intervention by people from the Ministry of Agriculture, the population gradually transposed the copper concept to a small herb, obviously in reference to this microscopic algae. And finally, in French Polynesia, educating local communities about the origin of ciguatera and preventive measure did result in a significant reduction of ciguatera cases in 2 islands, Raivave and Rapa. And locally, our communication strategy relied primarily on public meetings, school interventions, but also the dissemination of this awareness material made available in multiple languages, especially in local language. And the health professionals are not left out with this information kit, which has been designed specifically for them to improve ciguatera diagnosis and also case reporting. So to conclude, in communities with subsistence fishing tradition, the traditional knowledge on ciguatera is very important because it will contribute to shape the individual and community response to environmental changes, but also their perception and management strategies of ciguatera risk. While not all are effective, some of them can actually help keep the numbers of poisonings at an acceptable level. So putting more efforts into integrating traditional knowledge with Western science and vice versa is pivotal to try to improve or refine these management practices among this community. And we also see that decisions about the management of ciguatera cannot be separated from its broader socio-cultural context. And this implicitly requires a transdisciplinary approach, including more contribution from social science in future mitigation program. And one way to promote this transdisciplinary approach is to capitalize on the current globalization of ciguatera, which has fostered the emergence of international and regional initiatives, such as the Interagency Global Ciguatera Strategy, the MedHub in the Mediterranean, the Safe Fish National Ciguatera Strategy in Australia, or the Pacific Cigua Watch Initiative. And hopefully, this improved networking will assist in the implementation of a global response to a global issue. And lastly, I would like to acknowledge the past and present scientific partners with whom my team and I had the pleasure of working over the past 3 decades, especially those present today. And many of the results presented in this talk could not have been achieved without their contribution. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Morel, for a fascinating multidisciplinary talk that really showed us the importance of understanding the cultural aspects of Ciguatera. Now we can open to the floor for questions. I believe there are some mobile microphones. So, question just here on the centre aisle.
Good morning. Thanks for your presentation. When talk to the test rigor mortis, we talk to 3 steps: pre-rigor, full rigor, and post-rigor. In your samples, the toxic samples, no full rigor?
Sorry, could you repeat your question?
Can you translate me, please?
I
Cuando
can
tú
try.
hablas de las muestras de rigor mortis, y tenemos full rigor, post-rigor, pre-rigor, pero hablaste de unas muestras tóxicas con ciguatera que no presentaron un full rigor. ¿Es así?
Well, Mirai, let's see if I can translate this. For the rigor mortis test, apparently there are 3 levels, ¿no? Hay 3 niveles, ¿no?
Yes.
Completo, intermedio y bajo, algo así, ¿no?
Pre,
Pre,
full, post.
for the rigor mortis test, there would be pre-rigor, post-rigor, and so la pregunta es si se documentó en qué contexto estaba el rigor mortis, ¿es correcto?
En la muestra tóxica no alcanzó el full rigor,
Sí. If
de
the
acuerdo con las
toxi-
fotografías.
According to the picture, the positive sample would not generate full rigor mortis. That's the comment of the speaker.
No, maybe it was not very visible on the slides, but the people in Revive Island would wait for 2 hours after the fish is dead, and then they will compare the fish who is flabby, going that way, is believed to be toxic, because usually a safe fish would show rigor mortis.
Full rigor.
Yeah,
Okay.
full rigor. And we have seen on the field that, in fact, many high-risk species like the camouflage grouper does show this flabby aspect.
Thanks.
At the back there, Shauna, I think it is.
Thank you, that was a wonderful talk. My question was about the study that you've done on the fish otoliths. 200 species, that's amazing, a huge amount of work. Just wondering, when you showed that the fish age had no real effect on the toxin uptake and also the length and weight, so does that imply that the depuration of the toxins can be relatively fast in some fish?
Yeah, in some fish, there has been some experimental feeding experiments using, for instance, the mullet, which is an herbivore, but also Naso-unicornis, a unicorn fish, and they gave a totally different results. Like in the mullet, the toxins that were fed to the mullets were readily excreted by the mullets. But to the contrary, in the nasounicornis experimental feeding, it was shown that these fish were actually capable of bioaccumulating increasing amounts of ciguatoxin. So definitely there is a difference in fish about this ability to depurate ciguatoxins, and this may explain why in the field there are some fish species that are recognized as high-risk species. It's probably some fish species that are unable or have difficulties in depurating their toxin uptake, you say, while other fish like the mullet or also what we call the rouget, I don't know the scientific name for the fish, but there are fish in Tahiti that are totally exempt of ciguatera, and probably these species are able to eliminate the toxins very easily.
I think there was a question over to the left, Miro.
Yeah, congratulations, Mireille, for this nice talk. I would like just to point out that ciguatoxins also block potassium channels. And you have not mentioned here, but it should be known because clinicians will measure the velocity of conduction of nerves peripherically to detect or to help to the diagnosis. And you know, these toxins act on voltage, of course, you show it, on voltage-gated sodium channels, inhibiting the inactivation, and this does not change the velocity of conduction in mammals, okay? So it's very important to mention that ciguatoxins and also other toxins that are produced by the dinoflagellate, like gambierol or other compounds that are now in study, also block the potassium channels. So this is just a small, but congratulations for this nice work that shows that you have worked a lot in Polynesia to our understanding of ciguatera. Thank you.
Thank you. My understanding is that mycotoxin also have an action on the calcium voltage gated.
Well, mycotoxin is
No?
another story.
Yeah.
Mycotoxin doesn't act on the calcium. Well, it acts on the calcium channel because it produces calcium entry into the cells through voltage-gated channels. And some of these voltage-gated channels are also present in all the cells of the organ. So they produce a drastic depolarization. This depolarization allows entry of calcium through voltage-gated. Yeah.
Thank you.
But this may be details, but the potassium should always be mentioned because clinicians will measure the velocity of conduction, and the velocity of conduction in patients with ciguatera
Can we
is
move on to another question now? Thank you. So we have one down the front and one in the middle at the back. Here.
Thanks for your talk and for coming to Punta Arenas. The outreach and educational activities are quite important to decrease the effects to human health. Could you comment some general ideas on these different strategies that have been introduced to strengthen outreach and educational activities in the different parts of the world where this subject is already present?
If I understand your question, is that the importance of conducting medical
more than
studies?
the importance, the strategies that are developed to apply outreach activities and educational activities in the local communities.
Yeah. I think in many countries there are popular beliefs that hamper, our action as scientists when we are on the field, and especially when we are delivering prevention messages. We will be confronted with, some belief with cultural, religious elements, and they are difficult to change in people. while what I call the traditional knowledge or the popular knowledge, which is different from the popular beliefs, these knowledge can be modified thanks to educational efforts, strategies, and then the people can adjust gradually to the situation, the environmental changes, based on the message that we have delivered. But in French Polynesia, I have realized that we have done many field trips, and we have conducted many public meetings. And in one instance, like in Rapa Island is an island that was free of ciguatera for many years until 2010, when a massive outbreak hit the entire island and killed 2 people. So the French Polynesian government sent us to Rapa, and of course we did some samplings, but we also conducted some public meetings. And we try to explain to them the origin of ciguatera, and they have to avoid fishing in some hotspots, because when we sampled for the Gambia discus, we found blooms of Gambia discus in this area. So when we left, we conducted a huge meeting, and we told the people that they have to avoid fishing in these areas. And then we learned that a week after we left the island, the religious leader of the island stood up during the Sunday meeting and told the people that if they fast one day, then all the fish will get clean, and then they can consume the fish again. So it's again this sort of message that we have to fight, and maybe we have to find a way to communicate and make sure that our prevention message is clearly understood and accurately transmitted through among the populations. And we probably need the help of social science, because they know how to approach the people and talk to them in their own language, which is not obviously the scientific language.
I think we had a question there in the middle at the back. Next. And probably one more over the other side, Alan. And that will probably pull us up.
Thank you so much for your talk. It was wonderful getting of the. It's just fantastic, all this information that you have gathered, but also seeing that we all have a scientist inside of us, even if we don't have a university degree, and all these ecotoxicology experiments that they perform. I'm going to take you back to the question of Shauna here, because it's interesting to see that some fishes, they can actually be purified. Have we sort of recognized what's the difference between the other fish? Is it physiological? Is it the amount of fat that they have? Sort of to understand the pathway, so perhaps we can make some depurification method for humans or even the other fish, something? Sorry that I'm taking you back, but it was just so interesting, everything that was said.
In fish, we think that one way to reduce the toxin levels in fish tissue will be, like I say to Shauna, is to be able to eliminate quickly the toxins through feces, urine, etc. But I believe that some fish may have the capacity to sequester the toxins in tissue compartments, and in these compartments it will bind to protein molecules, and that can keep the toxins from being distributed to the different organs and tissues, and also the possibility that in the liver, these toxins will be converted to less toxic analogs that can also be readily depurated. What we would like to know is that why are the poisonings in humans so severe? because when we measure the toxins in fish remnants following a toxic meal, the amount of toxins that we find is generally very low compared to what we find in the fish, and the fish doesn't seem to be annoyed by these high concentrations. But we think that in humans, these toxins are probably biotransformed in the liver into very new analogs that we don't know, because obviously we cannot sacrifice human people and make biopsy of their liver to analyze the analogs. But it would be interesting to also have an idea in the diversity of the toxins analogs that are found in human, which display severe poisoning. I don't know if I answered your question.
Final question from Alan, I think.
Okay, I'll try to keep it short. First of all, Marie, thank you very much for an excellent attempt to rationalize traditional artisanal approaches to dealing with the symptoms of ciguatera poisoning and so-called Western medicine or pharmaceutical and medical technology. Just to take you back, since you did such a nice historical review of the development of these different aspects, I remember distinctly that in the 1980s, before we knew anything about ciguatera toxins and the structures, and certainly even less about mode of action, that the intravenous administration of mannitol was considered to be an appropriate medical treatment. And my question is, what's going on with mannitol? Sugar alcohols, are they still being used, or has that been now debunked as a viable therapy?
I think mannitol is still used in some countries, but the problem is that many studies have gave contradictory results about the effectiveness of mannitol. But many people who believe that mannitol should be administered to ciguatera patients very quickly after the first sign of the symptoms is that it helps prevent, those. It's an osmosis effect, and we know that this can be very critical in severe poisonings. So to my knowledge, we don't use this treatment in Tahiti. We barely use, Western medicine, because many people wouldn't want to go consult because they have more confidence in these traditional remedies. But again, these traditional remedies must be taken. This decoction prepared from the leaves has to be taken very quickly after the first symptoms, just like mannitol. Otherwise, if you wait like 1 week or 2 weeks, it has no effect anymore. So maybe it has the same action as mannitol has on patients.
Okay, thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Morel, for kicking off the meeting.
Thank you.
With a brilliant opening talk. So, thank you, and we'll close this session.
Thank you. Now you can go to a short coffee break, and you have to be here back at 11. So enjoy. Thank you.